You ate fine all day. Right? Breakfast was routine, lunch was reasonable, dinner was solid. Right? You were, by any objective measure, right, an adult who had his act together. And then 9 p.m. shows up, and you find yourself standing in front of the pantry, in your kitchen, all right, having this negotiation with yourself that you already know you're going to lose. Here's what I want you to notice about that moment. Clearly, you're not dumb. You know what's in the bag. You know how many calories are in it. Yet some rational part of you could even tell you why this isn't helpful to eat, and that probably you should just go to bed. Right? Nonetheless, at 9 p.m., all of that goes quiet. Right? Something else takes the wheel and is driving you to food. Now, if that's your night, or if that's most nights, I want to help you get off this hamster wheel of nighttime eating and learn how to consciously choose your next bite. So first, let's go through what you've probably already tried, because it's important to show you why none of it actually worked. Number one, willpower. Right? Just don't eat after 8 p.m. And that can work for about 8-9 days, which is exactly long enough to convince you that the problem is that you don't have enough willpower. Right? Number two, right? You tried the don't keep it in the house, which honestly is better than nothing, and we're going to come back to that one, right? But eventually, right, you found the almond butter, you found your kids' crunchy snacks, you found that last bag of something, right? You always find something. If the drive is still there, you will search until the compulsion is satisfied. Number three, right, you tried the app, right? You logged everything, you wrote it down. You discovered that often, right, this might actually keep you from eating more than you need. However, there are those times when you abandoned the tracking. You said, screw it. You said, what the hell, right? You don't want to have to face the guilt of logging 3 desserts and being honest with yourself, right? Number four, you try getting stricter during the day. And I know what this is like. So you skip breakfast, you have a really light lunch, you try to bank all of those calories for later. And maybe for a day or two, it felt kind of like a win. But once your body really figured out what was going on, your nights typically get worse. You cannot outsmart hundreds of thousands of years of survival biology. And some more on that in a moment. Next, you've tried maybe fasting, right? 16-8 fasting, something like that. And it could work beautifully for a time, right? Until eventually it turned into this food-focused binge where you're cramming so many calories into a short period of time and you don't feel good. All right? And then lastly, maybe you just get angry at yourself and you promise yourself you're going to do it differently tomorrow, which honestly is just wishful thinking unless you really address the underlying driver of your nighttime eating. Every one of those approaches, right, makes the same assumption, that nighttime eating is a self-control problem that requires stricter discipline. Right? Usually that's not it. Right? Nighttime eating is the last link in a chain that starts off at 7 o'clock that morning or even many days before. Right? And guess what? You don't fix the last chain. Right? You fix the upstream things that are leading to that. Right? And the reason I can describe your 9 p.m. so precisely is that I've lived this myself for years. Right? I will return to the kitchen for more food even after a totally satisfying day of eating. And in my coaching practice over the last decade, I've had many conversations with many men, right, lawyers, founders, fathers, guys managing lots of people, right? They're extraordinarily productive and wonderful and disciplined humans, except at night, right? When all the work is done and people are in bed and they're left alone with food. Right? So let's look at what is actually happening. Right? First of all, I want you to stop thinking of yourself as one guy with one appetite. Right? Instead, think of yourself as a family sitting at a dinner table, and each person at the table has a job. Right? There is a part of you focused on getting your body the energy it needs, right, to remain alive, period. Right? And I call that part of you the survival eater. And there's another part that just wants enjoyment, novelty. It wants a good, tasty reward for carrying so much responsibility all day long. Right? That's your pleasure eater. And then there's the part of you that just wants some connection. Right? And food, guess what? It's a convenient proxy for the connection that might be missing from your day or from your night, right? That is your social eater. And then there's the part that makes the plans, sets the goals, reads the labels, right? That's your strategic eater. That's the one that's great at talking about nutrition, thinking long-term about food. And here's the thing, at 9 a.m., your strategic eater might show up really loud and clear. At 9 p.m., guess what? He's asleep. Sleep at the table, all the other guys are ordering the food. Right? So here are 5 reasons that tends to happen. I want you to think about which one most resonates with you. Right? Number 1, right? And this is the least glamorous thing, but maybe you just didn't eat enough earlier in the day. Right? You start your day with nothing but coffee, then you have a salad with 4 tiny little pieces of chicken, and then you go 6 hours without eating because you're in the zone, working, focusing. Then you do your workout, and then dinner at 8 p.m., guess what? You're ravenous. Right? And you might call that a normal, productive workday, but on repeat, your body is going to recognize the storage. And the body always collects its dues. Right? Maybe not the same day, but eventually. Right? You cannot outsmart this beautiful piece of evolutionary machinery. Right? So how to know if this is you, if your nighttime eating starts with a real grumble deep in your stomach, and you'd eat almost anything substantial, right? Just give me those eggs, those leftovers, sandwich, right? You've probably under-eaten something. And it might just not be under-consuming calories on the whole, but if you're severely restricting a macronutrient, like going really low carb or really low fat, this can trigger your body into this compensation pattern where it's trying to make up for that perceived lack of a nutrient, right? Your body does not like these long-term imbalances. It will find a way to get what it needs. So the experiment for you, for 1 week, right? Eat a real breakfast. Eat a real lunch instead of saving all of your food for dinner. Have protein and carbs and fat. Have some actual volume to your meal, right? Even add in an afternoon snack if you're going to have late dinners. And then at dinner, make sure you're having enough. So without a doubt, there's no caloric need for more food. And then see what happens at 9 p.m. Right? Part of you is going to maybe fight me on this. Right? You're like, wait a second, I'm going to have to eat more earlier so I can eat less later. Yes, try it, watch. I think many guys are stunned by how much quieter the nighttime eating gets when you're actually fed during the day. So number 2, you've never come down from the energy of the day. Right? You've got meetings, you've got so many decisions, maybe you've got traffic and a commute, bedtime with your kids. You finally sit down, right? Your body is on the couch, but your nervous system is running 1,000,000 miles an hour. Food is the fastest state-changing available tool to so many of us. And so that mouth crunching, it discharges tension in our body. The sugar soothes us psychologically, neurochemically. The volume in our belly, right, kind of unbuckles our belt. It lulls us into this place of calm. And that mindless eating gives our minds an escape from having to make one more decision or just from having to feel the enormous weight of responsibility that we carry all day long, right? So how do you know if this is you? If that urge to eat shows up, right, the minute the kid's door closes, right, when you finally have permission to settle down, and the eating feels less like hunger and more just like a, sometimes eating more is really your nervous system asking to change state, and the food is there to help discharge that. Right? And so I'm not going to pretend that taking a few deep breaths is going to automatically help you put away the cookies. Right? But a good power down transition ritual is a really important skill and practice. It buys you time, it gives you clarity between the stress of the day and then what happens with the nighttime eating. So change your clothes, get a drink of water, get some fresh air, right? Have some consensual physical touch. And then if you still want to eat, ask some question. What state am I trying to leave? Because you're going to be surprised when the answer is not that you really need to eat more, but that you really need 10 minutes where nobody is asking anything from you. Right. Number 3, by 9 p.m., right? Food is the only pleasure left on your calendar. And this is true if you've been really responsible all day, right? You followed your plan, you meet everyone's needs, you're patient with people who maybe didn't even deserve your patience, right? You deferred every single thing you wanted or actually needed because you had to take care of other stuff. And then because maybe you're trying to wash your food or lose some weight, right? You cut out all the foods you really enjoy. So no more pizza, no more takeout, no more ice cream, right? Of course, you'd rebel. I'd rebel. At that hour, food isn't food. It's your reward. It's your freedom to feel good. And for a lot of guys juggling work and family, it's really the only few moments of that day that fully belong to you. And this is when something sweet or another beer or a glass of whiskey, right, tend to come out. Right? So if you're not that physically hungry, but you want to eat something really specific, this is usually a sign that this is about emotional pleasure. Right? And there's a line in your head that goes, right, this is the only thing I have to look forward to all day. I really want it. That's important. Right? When pleasure is deferred long enough, it eventually takes payment. And the food is the easiest place to collect that payment. So the question isn't like, how do I stop wanting this? The question is, where else does pleasure live in my day? Am I doing enough things because I truly enjoy them? Or have I quietly replaced my needs with productivity? So the experiment is put some small, non-food pleasure earlier into your day, engineer it into your work week, right? Anything tiny, jam out to your favorite song, 10 minutes of your favorite game, right? Something to read that isn't just work or a mindless scrolling distraction. Hang out with friends who make you laugh, right? And then, if you still feel like you want to eat, plan it out. Put the food on a plate, sit down, right? Be really mindful, right? Instead of just mindlessly trying to bring pleasure into the day, right? So the goal is to build a life where food isn't carrying the entire weight of all of your pleasure by itself. So number 4, right? Sometimes there really isn't that much deeper meaning and your environment is really just running this nighttime eating behavior. Right? That bag is just open on the counter. You always sit in that same chair or sofa at night. Right? Your route from the couch to your bedroom goes straight through the kitchen. Right? Your brain has rehearsed all of these associations thousands and thousands of times. Right? Couch means snacks. Show means dessert. Right? Every time I walk past the bowl of sweets, I just pop a few in my mouth. Now, you may feel like you didn't even decide to eat. It kind of just happened. And you're exactly right. Behaviors like this usually take place days before. They're conditioned tendencies. And when the cue entered your fields of vision, that loop just automatically repeats. So the experiment, right, is like to change the environment. Get those trigger foods out of your eyesight. Right? Don't sit down with the whole bag. Move the hyper-stimulating stuff somewhere inconvenient. Change the chair you sit in. Do something different with your body before you pass by the snacks. And guess what? Listen, if you decide to make a hard and fast rule, like I'm going to close the kitchen down, it doesn't mean that you're forbidden to eat. Right? It means that you're consciously changing your default eating environment. You are always allowed to reopen it on purpose. And that difference between the conscious choice and the default is this whole game. So number 5, you're just tired. You're tired, your capacity is gone. Again, at 9 a.m., you care deeply about your day. You care about your long-term goals. You have vision. At 9 p.m., you care about the next hour, if that. Fatigue, it narrows our time horizon. And the big picture gets quieter, and whatever immediate we need gets louder. Which is why that nighttime eating often comes with sort of unspoken, specific thought, which is like, I just don't care anymore. I don't have it in me. Well, you do care. But you're trying to run tomorrow's judgment on tonight's brain, and the two don't compute. Right? So if you're staying up really late, right, you might think you need more food, but what you probably need is sleep. And often we cross these signals of like, oh, I have low energy, so I should eat, with I have low energy and I should really just go to bed. Right? And if you keep scrolling and snacking without really enjoying one or the other, right, clearly it's not working for you. So the experiment, right, move bedtime up as much as you can. And honestly, look at alcohol because that is going to lower the brakes on your eating and it just wrecks your sleep. Right? And then ask, do I need more pleasure right now, or am I using stimulation to keep myself awake? Sometimes we just eat to stay up. It's out of boredom. There's no real reason. I found that sometimes eating isn't extending your enjoyment. It actually is just prolonging your exhaustion. So the next time you're standing at the fridge, right, here's a very quick version. Right? 1, pause. Pause without trying to control, without trying to fix, without trying to forbid yourself. Just pause for a moment. And then 2, check in with your body. When did I last eat? What am I noticing? Where is my energy? Where does that hunger live? All of this is trying to tell you something. And then 3, ask, who's talking? Is it the survival eater saying, I need energy? That pleasure eater that says, just give me something enjoyable? Right? That social eater says, I'm kind of lonely. Right? Your job is to be the guy at the head of the table who can hear each one of these voices without letting one of them make the whole decision. That is self-leadership with food. Now 4, right? Name the job. Finish the sentence, right? This part of me is trying to do what? Get energy, calm down, reward me, right? All of this is important for understanding the intention. Now that doesn't mean that you approve the strategy or follow through with the behavior, but now you've understood what's going on, and then you can choose a different response. And it's not the perfect, healthy response. It's just something different, something new. Move the system, give it some different inputs, shake up your habitual way of doing things and see what emerges, right? Don't repeat the past. Again, that, as we know, is insanity, right? And also redefine, what does winning look like? Because success doesn't always mean, oh, I didn't eat anything. Success can be, I ate because I was hungry instead of trying to fight myself for 45 minutes. Or I ate and I really enjoyed the dessert and I stopped when the pleasure dropped off because I was eating it for pleasure and I noticed. Or I realized the food couldn't fix what I was actually wanting, so I decided to do something else. Right? So don't judge one night. Work with the pattern. Practice. Try different things. Track it. And when that nighttime urge to eat hits, just notice what's happening right before, what's happening in your body, what's happening in your environment. Right? This will help you build a good map. And I think many guys find that Monday through Friday, often maybe there's just too haphazard eating, there's an inadequate lunch. Friday, maybe there's lots of alcohol. Sunday, you're anxious about the week ahead. And then you've got your TV or your phone as a cue every night. It's once you can see the system, you can stop applying the same blunt solution to all of these different scenarios. And one last thing I think to be careful for. Right? If you regularly feel really out of control around food, or you're hiding your eating, or you're waking up in the night to eat, or you're hyper restricting the next day, right? That deserves real support. So you should seek out a qualified clinician, right? Not just a YouTube video. Right? There's no shame in that. It is a smarter move than another round of just trying harder and beating yourself up. Now for everybody else, right? You're not broken at night, right? You've just built a life where food is being asked to do 5 jobs at once. You're asking food to fuel you, to calm you, to reward you, to entertain you, to keep you energized when you probably should be getting some rest. If you want the structured version of this, I put together a free 5-day eating reset. Now, there's no meal plan, there's no forbidden food list, right? This is about getting out of that restricting, overeating, restarting cycle, rebuilding enough structure without turning yourself into a drill sergeant. All right? And ultimately coming into this place of conscious choice. So the link is in the description, right? You don't need to win another willpower game of nighttime eating. You don't need to constantly fight yourself every evening. Right? You need to build the self-awareness and the system where none of your parts have to fight each other. This is Jeff Siegel, and I'm rooting for you.